Morning there, we're up bright and early this morning. It's about 8:10. We are going from here in Marbella along the coast towards Malaga north to a place called Archedona. And with dirt bike holidays, a guy called Steve and his wife out in the kind of off up the mountains, and we're going to go and do a little bit of an easy tour today. That's the plan. Let's see how we get on. So I saw their advert in the latest TRF magazine. That's going to be the last one that I get because I left the TRF. Long story there. And dropped him an email, him and his wife Kay, an email at the start of the week asking whether they could just do a tour for me, and was very explicit about what I wanted to do. So I had a really good idea about what I wanted to do. I wanted to do these trails. I didn't want to do any single track. I didn't want to do anything technical. And when I was talking to Steve and Kay, they said, you made it easy. If you've got a good idea about what you want to do, then we can tailor your tour to exactly what you want to do. And it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. In chatting with Steve and Kay kind of through the day when I got there, they gave me a cup of tea. They had all the kit as well, so you don't need to take your own helmet or anything like that. They've got it all there. You can just turn up and they can kit you up. He's got a selection of Fantic bikes. I think he can do up to 8, but he said his preferred size was 2 or 3. And I know what that's like from riding with Perry when I go round the Surrey Hills. He's kind enough to let me tag along sometimes. But you know what it's like when you're riding with a group of motorbike riders. It takes them ages to take the stuff off, ages to take the stuff on. Then they want a fag, stop for a piss, all this kind of thing. It takes ages it's like herding cats. Whereas if there's just a couple of you, then you can kind of crack on. So it was, this guy's been there, seen it, done it. But he was, the more that you tell him about what you want to do, the easier it is. And this was exactly what I wanted to do. Riding these trails through these olive groves and then aiming for those mountains in the end, and that's exactly what we did. It was a really lovely day. Nothing too technical, but he knows enough around there, so if you wanted to do single track, if you wanted to do something a bit more taxing, I'm pretty certain he could throw it in. His background is motocross, so I'm in it. This is easy for him. But it was perfect for me. I didn't want to do anything other than this. And as you can see, these are all just tracks, so these are 4x4 tracks, and you'll see some cars along some of these. There's nothing too wild that we're doing here. The weather was bright and cold and dry, and it's been dry for the past week. He was saying there was a little bit of mud in some places, but the rest of it was just perfect conditions, so sometimes when it's damp and then it dries out, so there's no dust. So I can imagine in summer there'd be a load of dust. And we stopped for lunch in a little while. We did miles of this, which is, I love this kind of riding. And if you see any of my other videos where I do Salisbury Plain and around there, I always talk about wanting to do this kind of thing. It was a real bucket list thing today. We stopped at a restaurant, had a couple of coffees. We didn't actually eat anything. We just had a couple of coffees just to keep us going. And then he said, we're aiming kind of around that loop around there, and then for the mountain in the far distance. And so that's what we did. More of this. Miles and miles and miles of olive trees. That's where all your olive oil comes from. and as we kind of aimed for the mountain in the distance, it got a little bit more scrabbly. But again, if you know my riding capability, anybody could do this. Absolutely anybody could do this. So when we were stopping and having coffee, I asked him how business was, and he said super busy, absolutely super busy. He's turning people away because there's too many people are looking for this kind of thing. And he likes working with smaller groups. I think that's just more flexible. I can imagine if you've got a bigger group, that can be a pain, as I was saying before. He did say, for some reason, he's got a load of Dutch girls that are suddenly turning up this year. And I said, oh yeah, that'll be because of the girl on YouTube. And he said, I don't know what you mean. So I said, Noralie, you know, the Itchy Boots girl? And he didn't know about it. So if you've watched Itchy Boots, I think she's an inspiration. She's fantastic. Certainly when I was watching her videos, she was inspired me to get my CRF 250 a couple of years ago and do some of those bigger tours. And obviously that's feeding into why Steve and Kay are so busy with these girls that are turning up from Holland. We're aiming for kind of the corner of that mountain up in front. So we probably did about an hour and 3/4, 2 hours in the morning, and then the afternoon was a little bit longer, but just beautiful, just beautiful. Steve's got a camera on the back of his mudguard, one of those teeny tiny GoPro ones, and I think I switched to some of that in a minute. So yeah, so this Fantic, great bike, nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with it at all. Okay, and the reason that I was saying that I think mine was a bit unique was I could not find neutral in it when it was stopped. Just it went first, second, neutral must have been the width of a piece of paper, but I could not get it into neutral. Then when you're riding along, all of a sudden neutral becomes like the Bermuda Triangle. So you go from first into neutral, which is a mile wide, and then into second. And I only had one spill today, and that was when I was going into the start of a little piece of single track, and I wanted to go from, I can't remember what I was doing, first into second, and I went first, neutral, and fell off. Oh man. And the weather today in Marbella was grey and overcast down by the coast, but up in the mountains it was just beautiful, beautiful. As soon as you stopped it was cool. It was probably 12, 13 degrees, something like that. And I had 4 or 5 layers on, so I had like 3 kind of under layers. I had a jacket and then an over jacket. I don't know whether you see when this camera angle turns around. I had like a waistcoat on that Steve suggested, which worked perfectly. And I was riding with summer gloves and my former adventure boots, and it was all my kit, and it was my helmet. So that's got this GoPro mount on it. But as I said, Steve's got all the kit and caboodle, so you wouldn't need to bring anything. You know, you could just rock up there. So this is me following Steve, heading up to this lookout point, nestled in the mountains. One thing that I should say is that it's not a race, and if you go to the website, I think he says, you know, leave your ego at home. This isn't bombing it down these lanes. This is more of a tour, and that was exactly what I was looking for. If you see any of my videos, you know that I go at something of a plodding rate. So then we came up to this lookout point. Just beautiful. Down into the interior. That spaghetti western landscape. Rightio, that was spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Let's crack on. What a lovely, lovely day out. And then back down again. And then I think we did about another hour after this in the afternoon. And by the time I got back to Stephen Kay's place, I was done for the day. It was really nice. Really, really nice. Very much recommended. So I'm just back from probably the best part of probably about 4.5 hours actually, out with Steve here at Dirt Bike Holidays. A lovely time. That's a tick off my bucket list, because whenever I used to fly over Spain, I used to see all those trails going through the pine forests and through the olive groves, and I always thought, God, I bet it'd be lovely to ride through those. And we've spent 4 or 5 hours just doing that, and beautiful on these Fantics. I've never ridden a Fantic before, but they were easy and forgiving and confidence inspiring. Done miles and miles, don't know how many miles we've done, but I'd really recommend that. That was excellent. A lovely, lovely day out.